Hi everyone, this is Erin from Sandpaper Road, and today I'm sharing with you a process video of how I made this football scrapbook layout. This is a 12 by 12 layout, and it's got a photo flap for extra journaling or an extra photo, and I also incorporated some stamping onto my layout. Now I cut a piece out of the back. This was a whole big piece of scrapbook paper, and you'll see this is how it's going to look when I add my 8 by 10 photo and my 4 by 6 photo to the flap. It looks fantastic. But let me show you how I did this. First of all, I wanted to use this piece of paper this is the high school stack from Die Cuts with a View, and they have all kinds of different papers in there, but it's a full size sheet with like a big solid image, and sometimes that can be a little challenging because you don't really want to cover up the whole image. So to alleviate that problem, I usually get just a regular paper pack that I have. In this case, I'm using a 6 by 6 paper pack. I trace a little square on the back, and I cut out a square that's in the middle. That little area on the scrapbook layout is going to be covered up anyway with my 8 by 10 size photo. So it wouldn't do any good to just completely cover the entire page and not use that paper that's underneath. So this is a really good way to make good use of your supplies, stretch your supplies, and now I've got a little 6 by 6, and it's not exact because I can use it later, trim it to whatever project I'm going to use later. So, but I've got roughly a 6 by 6 size piece of that football paper that I can use for another project or even as accents on this project if I want. Now I'm going to use just a regular piece of white cardstock, and I'm going to trim it to about a 1/4 inch larger all the way around than my photo. And I know I'm going to use an 8 by 10 size photo. That's one of those team photos that kind of comes with, your child's picture and the team photo all in one. So in this case, it's 8 1/4 by 10 1/4, and that's how I'm going to do that. Now, before I get too far, I am going to trim down my base scrapbook layout page to make sure that it is exactly 12 by 12, or depending on what size your page protectors are or whatever. For me personally, I'm trimming it to just a little bit shy of 12 inches by 12 inches. It's just a hair smaller, and that way my pages don't kind of buckle under the when they get put in the page protectors. So now this is just some regular black cardstock, and I'm measuring my scrap piece there to make sure that it is 6 by 6. I was pleasantly surprised that it was. And now I'm going to do the flap. Now I'm measuring this here. I have a 4 by 6 photo. So what I want to do is measure the flap. Now, if I was just doing a photo mat, it would be like 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. But I want to add 3/4 of an inch to the one side. So I'm going to, before I do any trimming, I'm going to score and fold that with about a 1/2 inch fold. See, now I don't have to worry about sizing and cutting and all that. I could just do what I need to do in a certain order. So I measured the 1/2 inch, made the flap, put my picture down, and then just made a mark. And now I can trim my paper that way. And you can do that same thing, because that way you can decide, maybe you want to put 2 pictures on your flap. Maybe your picture goes vertically instead of horizontally. It really just depends, but using a 1/2 an inch of a flap is pretty helpful. You'll notice I'm not gluing anything down yet, and that's because I'm going to be tucking that flap underneath the white mat. I'm going to be doing some stamping. I don't know exactly where I want these stamped embellishments to go, so I tend to not adhere anything down until later on. Now, these 2 stamps are from Technique Junkies, and they are part of the September 2021 new release. Now, I'm using the extra white cardstock that I cut off the end. I have this like extra long cardstock that I got, and I I'm going to just use the scrap from that to stamp my stamps. So the nice thing about doing this way, I don't know if I'm going to use a square die cut to die cut that out. I'm not sure if I'm going to use a circle or a shape die or whatever. So I actually also don't even know what color I want. I'm just going to try a couple things. So this is a Black Soot Distress Oxide ink, which is such good rubber stamping ink. I mean, I love it. I really love it so much. I looked at that and I was like, wow, that looks fantastic. So I thought, well, maybe, once I get my picture on there, I might want to accent a little bit more of their jersey color or whatever. So I really liked that. But guess what I did? Right there where I was spraying my stamp cleaner, I got like some stamp cleaner ink spritz that went onto my stamp thing. And I was so angry about that. But then actually when it dried, it actually looked sort of good. It looked kind of like paint spatter, but unintentional paint spatter. Which it was, to be honest. Well, then I thought, well, maybe I'll just try one in red, see if I can find an ink that I have on hand that matches the color of their jerseys in the photos. This was from when my son played 7th grade football. And there is another team in the picture, so I want to definitely accentuate his team colors. This ink pad is forever old, and it still works fine. But it has some little, I don't know, it was kind of funny because I hadn't used it in a while. And I thought, well, maybe it's just because I haven't used it in a while, because it was nice and the ink was juicy. It was just a little weird looking on paper. So I thought, well, let me just try that one more time. I don't know how to explain. I don't know what happened. It's just not using your ink pads regularly. And when I did it the second time there, I could tell it was going to be a good stamp. I thought, okay, well, this is the color I wanted. And yeah, and it turned out really good. I really liked it a lot. So I tossed out my other mess up red one, kept the red one and the black one, and I thought I'll decide later. And that is ink by Stampin' Up, like I said, that I have had forever, and it still is fine. And if any of you have Stampin' Up inks, you could probably tell it's real red. That's like the name of the color, real red. Like probably one of the original ink pads from back in the day. I was never a distributor or anything. I just liked their inks. And then I had a friend who was a distributor and gave me a lot of their stuff when she downsized. So now I'm going to work with this Football in Motion stamp. And it's pretty cool because it's got like this trail, like a throwing trail. I don't know, like a power trail. I don't know how to describe it. So I thought, well, maybe I'll do it in black. And then I was like, nah, maybe I have a good brown. That's like a good like football brown. So I looked at all my different browns to try to decide which one was going to be the best brown. And I just didn't want a weird looking brown because there's so much brown on my layout already. So I wanted to make it look like it was part of the layout, just seamless, as part of the layout. I love stamping with oxide inks. I really think the image comes out nice and crispy. It looks so good. That looks good. I was really happy about that. I have this little Stampin' Scrub here that is from Stampin' Up, and I just make my own stamp cleaner because that's what I do. So I think I'm done stamping now. And I will move all my stuff here out of the way and kind of get ready to move on. So I've got these embellishments, but then I noticed I had ink on my hands. And I thought, oh, well, I have ink on my hands. And then I looked at the football and I was like, oh, no. And I was so mad. And so I turned the camera off and I re-stamped the football for later. I was so mad. I did all that and it turned out so good. And then I just like smeared it with my finger, didn't even know. So It was no problem. I just couldn't believe that after all that, I just had a smear with my finger. I'm sure if you've been crafting for a while, that happens too often. I don't often leave those mess ups in my videos, though, I will say. But this time I did, and it's funny to watch it back. Okay, so this I wanted to try to cover up with the flap, you know, this area that says my son's name and his school, because my goodness, he's going to have a whole album with all kinds of stuff he's involved in. We're going to know his name in school. That doesn't need to be like front and center on the picture. But I didn't want to cut it out of the picture, but I thought, well, let me put this flap over top of it, and then I can have more room to add more pictures. So now I am attaching the flap to the white photo mat. Now the white photo mat then is going to be for that 8x10 size picture. And then I'm going to have to put another piece over top so that it sticks down to the layout. This is just some score tape, sort of my go-to. I used to use the Scotch ATG gun, and I really liked that as well. Nothing's really wrong with it. It was just a preference shift. You know, sometimes you just kind of change your mind. So now I can put the mats down. And part of this was sort of just because I didn't want my son and his teammates' pictures kind of all over the internet. So trying to just, while I'm doing this process video, keep the pictures out as much as possible. So I was trying to use that scrap piece, and then I thought, well, I have to sort of figure out how I'm going to incorporate, you know, my little embellishments here. And so I tried a few things. I thought that's going to look really good just right there at the end of the football, because this really was, it was a photo up top. It was a really good game. So the stamps were perfect. But then I wasn't sure about how to incorporate this football. I didn't want to just put it on an angle. I really don't like when I see that. It kind of bothers me, and I don't know why. We used to do that when we first learned. I say we, because all of us vintage scrapbookers, didn't we totally learn to put stuff on an angle, like in a corner or off to the side or whatever? But I don't know. I don't know. I just think I can do something a little bit more creative than just plunking it down on an angle somewhere. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could stick that football in place of the 2 O's in the word football? Like, we know it says football. So I thought, I'm going to figure out a way to do that. That's what I was thinking about while I was doing this die cutting, I remember. Because I thought, well, I'm going to see here. I know I'm going to use the red one, but I couldn't figure out what size die. So I have these stitched circle dies, and they are from Creekbank Creations. Really like their dies, and I like that stitched look. So just using my Big Shot machine, which I like. And I'm cutting them both out. I think what I'm doing here is I'm using the size that I think that I want for the red one. And then I'm using that smaller size on the black one. Because I just wanted to see. I can always restamp it if I love the smaller size. But pretty sure I wanted that larger size circle there with the red ink. So let's see what I like. If I use that red inked one, then my circle will hang off the layout just a little bit, which will be cool because then I can lift it up like dimensional. If I use that littler one, it's going to just look like I'm trying to squeeze it in there, and I don't like that look. So I'm definitely going to use that. I'm going to use some cardboard or something to mount that up so it will actually go over top of the photo just a little bit. You could use like dimensional foam or foam adhesive or something like this. Now this time with the football, you see me with my heat gun. I'm going to dry it for sure before I go smearing something. Make sure that I don't ruin it for the third time. Okay, now how am I going to get to cut this football out without having it look fake. I mean, clearly it's fake, but I mean, I want it to look natural. I guess that's not fake isn't the word I want. So I thought, well, let me cut out, just fussy cut around the football part where normally if I had a die for it, that's how it would look if it was die cut. And then I thought, well, where that trail is, that like power trail behind it, maybe I could just tear it and hopefully meet up with where I started to cut it with scissors. And then I got nervous because I thought, what if I smear this after I do all this stuff? So that didn't look too bad. I actually thought that didn't look too bad. I kind of just trimmed it up a bit, and yeah, the paper tearing on the back end I thought looked a little bit more natural. And I wasn't trying to be too perfect. Just, I mean, if I tore into some of the trail, it was fine with me. Yeah, that looks good. And that's just how I want it to look. But how could I do it without, I didn't want to cover up the letter F, but I didn't want to cover up the trail too much. Wasn't quite sure what to do. I thought, I wish I could just slide that in. And then I thought, wait a minute, I can do whatever I want. So I thought, well, let me just get my little craft knife. And I bet that I could just cut out the right-hand side of the letter F just enough where I could slide that in. Sometimes I forget that it's my scrapbook layout. Like I can make my layout however I want to make it. If I want to cut something with a knife, I will cut it. If I want to tear it, I'll tear it. And if I want to fussy cut it, I'll fussy cut it or whatever. And when you're scrapbooking, it's your layout. Do it however you want to do it. However you want to do it, it's going to look just fine. Just give it a try. It's just paper. I mean, I only had one sheet of this paper, but I thought, well, if I cut it and then I don't like it, I'm not cutting it all the way out, so it's not going to matter. And when I did that, I thought that is exactly what I wanted right there. That is perfect. I loved it so much. That was just how I saw it in my head. And the color ink blends perfectly with the paper and the embellishments and everything. And then I thought, how am I going to stick this down? So I just stuck a little bit of piece of score tape right there like that. And then I thought, well, I can't just leave that letter F just kind of like flapping there. So I took some liquid glue and then just glued that back down where I had cut it out. Yeah, I'm glad I did that because in my mind, that is how I saw it looking. And so I'm glad I didn't give up on that idea. Now I just have some cardboard, just literally some scrap cardboard from anything. And I'm going to glue some on the back of my embellishment there. I'm not worrying about that hanging off the end at all. And because it's really actually not hanging off the end that much, honestly. It's dimensional, so I lifted it up a little bit. I put a little acrylic block over top to let the glue dry for a second here. The adhesive, the liquid adhesive I'm using is the Nuvo Deluxe Adhesive by Tonic, and it's really one of my favorite ones. I love it. For scrapbooking and card making, actually. Mini albums, anything. It's really nice. I think I got a little sidetracked here. I think I was looking through my die storage thing while that was drying. But that's okay because I mean, I didn't end up using anything, but sometimes I'm like, do I want something else? Oh, I know what I was looking for. I was looking for these little tabs. That's why I was looking in there. I have these tabs, and they're by Creekman Creations, and I didn't want to just leave that photo flap just square like that. I wanted to use a little, like a little tab, so you knew you had to lift it somehow. And I thought, how perfect that I cut out that back piece from the layout. So now I can use that same paper to cut out my little tab. So it turned out perfectly. Of course, I cut a 6x6, or maybe a little bit larger or so, and so I had to trim it down just a tad because it did not want to fit into my big shot. I was trying to think ahead and save as much paper as I could in case I wanted to make a card or something, or a tag or something like that. So I just put the little tab there and ran it through a part of the paper that I thought would look good when it was folded. The tabs are cool because you can just glue them down. It folds in half, and then you've got one on the front and the back of your photo. Now I wanted, before I did this tab here, I want to make sure I wasn't like, I just didn't want it to cover up somebody's like whole head, or just, I don't know. I wondered if there was going to be a good spot to put it. And it turns out there was a spot where all the players were lined up, and just by their height, it kind of left a natural space for the tab. And I just glue that down there like that. That's all there is to it. It was really nice, though, to have that extra little bonus piece from the layout that I had cut out from behind. And it doesn't make one bit of difference. You don't see it anyway. So I thought about putting that strip inside the photo fold, but I don't know. It just looked like I was trying to force that piece to go somewhere. So that's basically it. I mean, I love it. I love the way it looks. It's just fantastic. Yeah, I'm really, really happy with that. I like the way that looks with the stamped images. I love that. It's going to look super. Here's how it looks when I've added my photos into the layout. And thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.